It's another glorious day on the Garden Railway. Not raining once again. Now, so far on the series, we have featured very heavily this end of the garden. We've got the harbour over there, and we've got the rockery over there. But what about the poor other end of the garden? Down here, big empty space. How to fill? Not so sure at the moment. And here, we've got the common garden shed. At least that's what it might look like to you, but to me, could be a little country signal box with a kettle boiling in the... Anyway, while I think about that, why don't we go and meet Bob Symes, who has not so much a shed as a... Well, you'll find out. Now, bear with me on this, Bob, but when my ever so lovely partner Sophie was pregnant with my little boy, she used to go outside and stand at the garden shed and sniff it, which I thought at the time was very bizarre behaviour. But sitting here in your workshop, I think I can see where she was coming from. There's a wonderful smell in here, and there's something about your particular workshop. It's not spick and span and clean and tidy. This is a workshop where things happen, it would seem to me.
Well, it has to be like that. A workshop that's tidy proves either you have a very tidy mind or you've got too much time not to model and put... You should put things away so that you know you've got to have a desk place where you can work and you need to have your tools at hand, but you don't want to put it away all the time, otherwise you don't have any time to work.
So what would your golden rules for workshops be?
Well, first of all, you need several things to make a workshop work.
Right.
First of all, believe it or not, a blackboard and a piece of chalk.
Really? Why is that?
You write anything down, drawings, telephone numbers, friends' numbers, sizes, anything. Next thing, you need hot and cold water and a sink.
Right.
You need to wash your hands frequently to stay clean. Hot water is essential.
Yeah.
And you need water to quench things, wash things. Thirdly, you need heat, because the workshop must not be cold when you work. So, and it must be dry.
You've got a lovely little...
I've got a little
wood-burning
stove. Absolutely ideal for it. Having got that, tools. Lots of tools. And don't fall for what we all do. Don't buy adaptable tools.
Right.
If you take a drill that will adapt itself into a router or, I don't know, saw or whatever it is, every time you adapt it, it takes a lot of time to set up, to get it going. Buy machines for every job.
What about all these small fiddly things? I mean, a lot of these look like medical implements to me.
Yes, I buy those things at various exhibitions, sometimes at £5, sometimes at £1 each. Those are artery forceps, which I don't use for surgery, but they grasp all sorts of things very well.
You use these for modelling and things
modelling,
like that?
Yes, you can hold things, you can clip them in there. Everything, it's a very useful tool.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you're instantly at hand your drills, you have your small pair of pliers and all the things you instantly need. For
modelling, do I need to get specialist ones from specialist shops, or will ordinary ones do?
Anything that's labelled special modellers is about 20% more expensive than the same tool in the tool shop.
Right.
But don't buy cheap and shoddy tools. This is the danger. Don't buy reduced to or no place of origin, because the first time you clamp something, it'll break.
Now, these huge and fearsome machines, well, quite frankly, they scare me, but I guess I'll have to get used to them. They can, in the hands of a skilled operator, produce some very fine models, as we can see here, Bob. But you being you, Mr. Symes, are not content to stay there, are you?
Nope.
This is something of a rather larger scale. What's this, 1/5 or something?
That's the 5th scale, yes. It will, when modified sufficiently and prepared, look like this. This is a Berryport and Gwyndrath Valley locomotive, which the Great Western acquired.
060. So that's a gauge 1 version of what this is going to be.
Yes. That's the 32nd scale.
Yeah.
That's a 5th scale.
Right, okay. Now, while we've got an engine in this state, this bit here, this piston here, this is what
This is a cylinder.
drives the wheels, isn't it?
Yes, this is a cylinder.
Yeah.
Inside the cylinder is a piston which fits tightly.
Right.
And the steam is admitted either this end, the front end, which drives the piston backwards.
Yeah.
And when it reaches the back end, it then is allowed to come the other side and push the piston forward.
Yeah.
And so that is the slide valve. And that lets the steam, which is in this valve chest, go in here,
Yeah.
pushing a piston that way.
Yeah.
And then it moves that way
Yeah.
and admits the steam at the front. And because it's very clever, it's got a little hole in here. It combines these two together and lets the steam go out of that into the chimney. And that makes the puff that you can hear, the choo, and makes the blast which keeps the fire going.
So if that's driving the wheels, what's this crank doing here?
That was designed as an axle pump.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to keep the boiler full of water when you're driving along. Good idea, we use it sometimes, but I'm going to dispense with it because I think putting a pump in here, when you can't get at it to do any maintenance, whatever, without taking the boiler off.
Yeah. I thought that. No, that's the first thing I thought. You ought to get rid of that. Yeah.
Well,
Well, where is the
I'll give you a
boiler
spare
anyway?
in a moment.
Is that it there?
Yes, that great thing is the boiler. Naked and stripped of all its goodies.
Is it upside down or something?
Upside down, yes, we
Right.
did some work on here to get the ash
Yeah.
pan on it. But what it's going to do, on this Sunday, in fact, I've got the inspector coming, and he's going to look at the boiler,
Yeah.
inside and outside, inspecting it.
Yeah.
And then I put the plugs in again, and then he's going to pump it up to twice the working pressure and see whether it must hold that pressure for about 2 hours or an hour and a half, whatever it is. And then he passes it, then I can assemble it and put it on, and then I got to steam the engine up, it comes again, and then it sets the safety valves. So it's quite a procedure.
Do you know, I've always wondered this. This is a very naive question, really. But who is the boiler inspector? Where does he go to a boiler inspector school to
No,
qualify?
it's a qualified engineer,
Right.
whom you and the insurance company trust.
Right.
It could be you, it could be me, it could be
Right.
anybody like us, as long as you know what you're doing.
Now, there is apparently one more essential item that you need in your workshop, according to Mr. Symes, that is. Although his workshop seemed to be pretty packed to me anyway. That might have something to do with it. All right, Bob.
Hi, that's...
What's this then?
Alternator plant that used to drive the house, now just for use if I need a lot of power in the workshop, like welding and so on. It's quite handy.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, I can just see my missus putting that in the shed.
That's it. That's handy. I get 2 of them going.
Yeah. Didn't you used to have a steam version of this?
Yes, that's right.
How long ago was that?
That was until last year, but then of course I had to have a boiler revision and I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So I did go in for the little one.
So you replace it with these diesels? Now, before we leave the home of Mr. Symes, there is one other thing to see in his garden, and it's a bit of a water feature. And being Bob Symes, it's, well, a little bit different to the sort of water feature you and I would have. It's one of the deepest wells in Surrey. Listen to this. I can't even run that far. Bob Symes' workshop and my shed, a world apart. Well, yes, they are actually, but I think I could turn this little shed of mine into something quite nice. Let's look at the facts. The trains are going to come into the station here. They'll depart, crossing something yet to be revealed here. They'll enter the shed here. And because I've created a dog bones circuit, I need a loop at each end. I've got one going around the water feature, and at this end, the railway will come out of the shed here, curve round on a flat board here and re-enter here. It does give us an obvious problem, is that the door is now unenterable. What's the solution? Well, we could just turn the shed round, but that will mean losing the windows that look over the garden. So my solution is moving that panel at that end to there and that panel there to there. An easy job? Probably not. Let's get on with it. I sort of expected it just to be nailed, but this is held together by what I now know are coach screws. No! Oh, it's only a stupid shed! Sorry, you know I said it was held together by a few coach screws. Well, it is. But it's obviously held together by a few more things as well. Well, I'll try and figure it out. Come on! Come on, you stupid shit! Enthusiastic, but hopeless. I might have known I couldn't do it on my own, so I've got me some help. It's David Pratt, series consultant. All right, David, what are you doing here then?
Your trains have got to get into the shed.
Right.
So I'm going to drill a hole here,
yeah.
Put the jigsaw in, and I'm going to cut a hole.
Nice hole. So shall I have a go at the other end doing these holes?
Yeah, sure.
Because there's two at the other end, isn't there?
Yes, there is, yeah.
Well, David's left me to my own devices to cut the holes at this end, and I did start cutting this one, then I had a horrible thought I might have got it wrong, so I just thought I'd quickly check with this piece of track. This is a half radius, this is what is actually going to sit here in the end, and that is a perfect fit into the middle of these two holes. So that's fine. You know, best laid plans of mice and men and all that sort of thing. Well, it's the hole. It's an interesting point, maybe, technological advances. When the Americans built their railways across the states, when they finally met, they were half a mile apart, okay? When they built the Channel Tunnel, they were 1 inch out. That's the sort of criteria we're working to on this. Here's Danny! No, not really, it's me. It's all right, calm down. Now, I've cut the hole and you'll notice that this is about half the size of the hole at the other end of the shed. Now, that's because it's a double track coming in at that end, and then the loop, of course, is a single track. And also, this looks, well, certainly to my eye, a little bit rough, but I'm assured that there's trimmings to go all around here and security hatches, so it should be all right. Now then, David, what are we up to next? Right, what's to do?
Insulate the shed.
Yeah, what's this, a bit of poly?
Yeah.
This is polystyrene, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 1 inch thick.
Now, where do I get hold of polystyrene from? For
Builder's Merchant. It goes under your floor in your house.
Oh, right, okay.
They all throw it down. Very cheap.
This is the stuff that comes in huge, big sheets, isn't it?
Yep.
And this provides a very good insulate. This is to keep me warm in the winter, is it, and cool in the summer?
No, I'm not worried about you.
Oh.
It's to give you a nice place to work.
Yeah.
But you've got electronic equipment in here, electronics in trains.
Yeah.
And you need to look after it because you spent a lot of money on it. So
Yeah.
let's try that one that way, Mark.
All right.
Does that go? No, you're quite right. Go on then.
Yeah.
Steam engines use a lot of water, and if you have to buy distilled water, it's very expensive. And you mustn't use tap water because it furs up the boiler with scale. So I collect rainwater, which collects on the shed roof and into this barrel here, which, as long as you filter it through an ordinary domestic filter, will give you clear water which is perfectly pure for the boilers. It's cheap and it's environmentally friendly.
David, this big old bit of ply here, this is going to be, well, I don't know, for want of a better term, this is going to be our train deck, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is when the train runs through the hole in that shed.
Yeah,
this is what it'll run onto.
Yeah.
And we're going to have various sidings off
Sidings
it, aren't we?
here, yeah.
To cut this means the use of this little
Yep.
baby here. This is a circular saw. Now, my carpentry skills aren't the world's greatest.
Okay.
And this, quite frankly, well, it scares me. What should I know about circular saws?
It should scare you because it's a very powerful work tool. Safety first, never put the cable anywhere near the saw if you can help it.
Yeah.
It's got its own guard to save you touching the blade.
You're right.
Okay. Don't use any force with it. Don't try and push it. Don't try and do anything with it. Just put it on, start it up, let it go. The reason for using a circular saw is it will cut a straight line for you if you don't try and steer it.
Don't make the same mistake that I made though. Wear ear defenders or something. Circular saw's really loud. What? Right, here we go, David. You ready for this now?
Yep.
Jolly good. How's your old battening being?
Not very well at all, really.
Why is that?
Well, it happens a lot. When you buy any piece of wood, you should look along it because this battening is all bent.
Yeah.
And what happens is they don't store it outside. They take it into the giant supermarket in the heat and it warps.
Oh, I see. These are your do-it-yourself shops you're talking about here.
Yes, indeed.
Cool, this is going to be a tricky manoeuvre. Yeah. Go on.
Go on. That's it. It's in.
There you go. Well, it fits.
More or less.
Not a lot of room though, is there?
No.
Need to do a bit of thinking about this really, don't we? I'll tell you what, this is a track which I did my half circle outside on. I know it's going to come through this hole here, don't I?
Yeah, and exactly where it's going to come, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I reckon I can figure this out.
Okay.
I can create quite a bit more room here.
My name's Philip Lane and the railway is called the Holly Beach Railway. The line began in 1991 and we sold a car which we used all the cash for to buy a collection of Pico track, and within a matter of a day or two we had track halfway across the lawn and it grew from there. It's basically three concentric loops with a common track across the garden. And we've introduced a push-pull shuttle that runs from one end of the garden to the other. We've modelled an abandoned line with a derelict engine built to order, which my father constructed out of scrap, and that just sits there going rusty all the time. Another feature is the swing bridge, which is pretty unique because it's a bridge on a curve, and that enables us to go down the garden, and that's got protected micro switches in it so locos don't fall off the track. And we've got two blind tunnels up this end at the terminus end where you can store a complete train of up to 16 coaches in some 16 feet of tunnel. Apart from those tunnels, there are two other tunnels on the line. One, the long tunnel, the children love because they can stand at one end, especially the shorter children, they can see right through it and they can see a train coming from both directions. And that goes underneath the rockery by the pond. It's nicely weathered. It was the earliest part that we built. It's on the damp side of the garden, so you've got a nice lot of moss that's growing over it. The other side of the garden, where the barbecue is, we decided to build an extension round to that. Everything has been built on extension with railways, as in the real thing. You have a need for it. So by the barbecue, there's a station which, of course, is called Barbecue End. And when I'm standing cooking barbecues, the trains are passing me by, and I can control the trains with radio control at that point, so I can stop them if I need be, and send the odd sausage or two around the other side of the garden. The control box is particularly interesting. It's based on a control box my grandfather built in the late 1940s for his railway in Orpington, which was a 00 gauge one, made almost entirely out of XRAF switches and controls, but considerably modernised inside. I built another railway in the last, this year, that we built a 5-inch railway. They always say that if you start big, you get bigger. And down in the woods we built a 5-inch line, which was a result of seeing an advertisement in a paper when I wasn't looking for anything, for a complete lot of 5-inch Jubilee track, and that goes all round the woods, and that's a ride-on railway. We've got a couple of locomotives, a battery-operated electric diesel, and a very nice little 040 steam, and that will pull quite happily 4 adults round that railway.
and with his newly acquired carpentry skills, found creates yet another masterpiece. Behold! It's a tunnel entrance. Well, it will be by the time it's all painted up and cut down here. But yeah, I think that should smarten the whole thing up. Now, the reason I've done this in plywood is because it's a lot easier than sawing through this. As you can see, the hole that we cut, all jagged edges, not very nice and tidy. This much easier to cut through and then tap it on top. But behold, dear viewer, this. Ta-da! It's the inside of the shed. Come inside. Now, the last time you saw me, I was working on this bit of the work top here, okay, and that's all been cut out and left me plenty of room to move around, and we've laid the track on, and at last we got our trains out. Yes! And I think it all looks pretty good. Now, this here is an old kitchen worktop which I've laid here and gives me just the right height to, well, sort of generally lounge around and listen to the Saturday afternoon football and say things like, yeah, I'll be in a minute. You know the sort of scenario. This here, this is my favourite little thing. Watch this. And up. There we go. That's our little hatch. Now, a general note about security. All this stuff is worth a little bit more than the average price of a lawnmower. So making sure the contents of your shed are all nice and locked up is paramount. Those shutters should be able to be locked down, maybe a wide grille across the windows or a hatch that closes down so that your old tea leaf can't see in. Those would be good ideas, worth bearing in mind, and make sure that you can lock your door. That's the inside. I think it's all looking pretty nice and I'm quite pleased. I think I might put some carpet down when we've finished all the milling around in the garden and the mud stops being trampled in. Meanwhile, outside, things still looking pretty tatty, but don't worry. I've got a few ideas and we're going to totally transform this shed. Actually, we're going to... Ooh, almost told you, didn't I? Hang on and wait. More importantly, things are now in place for the next major step of the Garden Railway. See you then. Bye.